Hong Kong authorities have shut down the territory's airport. Thousands of activists are staging a sit-in, accusing police of using excessive force against pro-democracy demonstrators. Activists accuse police of targeting protesters at close range with tear gas canisters and deliberately aiming for people's eyes. Now, there's evidence that security forces are ratcheting up their crowd control tactics following the 10th straight weekend of protests. Video footage shows police storming a subway station and then firing tear gas inside the building. China has also, for the first time today, described the Hong Kong protests as terrorism. Well, let's go right to our correspondent. Phoebe Kong is standing by for us in Hong Kong. Hi, Phoebe. So Hong Kong's airport authorities canceled all departures because of these protests. What more can you tell us about what's been happening?
Well, thousands of protesters have started to gather at the arrival hall of the Hong Kong International Airport for hours already. And many of them are still staying, as many of them, they are now leaving their work and they're joining the crowd at the airport. And most of them, they gather at the arrival hall. They want to spread their message because the reason why they choose the airport as the venue and the destination of this assembly is that they want to spread their message to the international community, especially they want their voice to be heard, especially to spread the message to the tourists around the world while they're arriving in Hong Kong. So their aim is to protest against the alleged brutality or the excessive force used by the Hong Kong police, especially last night. And right now, the police have already warned the protesters at the airport to leave on their own. And sources have told me that some of the Hong Kong-based airline, such as Cathay Pacific, they have asked the staff who work nearby the airport, especially at the headquarters at the airport, to leave earlier than ordinary days. So this is the latest situation, and people are now, some of the staff at the airport are now evacuating from the airport, but protesters, at least most of them, are still staying at the airport and they want to continue the demonstrations at the airport.
They're also demonstrating, Phoebe, as we were saying, against what they perceive as increased police brutality. We have seen increasingly violent clashes between police and the protesters. It does seem like the situation is really escalating, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. The violence between the protesters and police officers has been escalated over the last weekend. What we have witnessed at the front line of the clash scene, the protesters, they keep on using the flash mob tactics, the strategies to protest in various regions across the city. But on the other hand, the police force seems like they appear to use a more aggressive approach to repress the protest, and they're trying to arrest more people. Over 100 of them has been arrested last night in one single night. And as you have mentioned in the report earlier before, that police has fired tear gas first time in the metro station. So we can see they are taking a hardline approach towards the protesters.
Our correspondent, Phoebe Kong, bringing us up to date with the very latest there in Hong Kong. Thank you, Phoebe. And let's get some more context on this story now with DW's Clifford Coonan. He's also been following the situation in Hong Kong for us. Hi, Clifford. What do you think of the decision to cancel the flights at the airport?
Well, it's a major decision. I think it shows the sort of growing disconnect now between what's happening in the protests and what's happening at the government level and with the government's links to Beijing. We've just been seeing some of these pictures here, and I mean, this is Hong Kong. It's incredible to see. And so the government is focusing on the economic consequences of the protests. Whereas the protesters themselves have realized the symbolic importance of the airport. I mean, this is an outward-looking country, an outward-looking economy. This is designed by Sir Norman Foster. It's a jewel in the crown in Hong Kong, and it's so important to the life of the and fabric of the former territory. So it's clearly a huge development.
Okay, so a significant step there in closing the airport. We have seen those pictures you mentioned of police using water cannon trucks, tear gas. Is this the first indication that, one, this is escalating, and two, we could see the Hong Kong government and then China really move in and try to break up these protests?
Well, there's been warnings. Social media is buzzing at the moment from both sides as well. Amnesty has just issued a warning, warning to protesters to be careful about tear gas. We saw this footage of the weekend of tear gas being used in subway stations. And if a similar thing happens in the airport and they use tear gas in the airport, the possibilities are disastrous. So there's a lot of fear there at the moment. I think other things they were saying on social media was that the protesters are going to withdraw quite quickly, that it's kind of a way of just moving in and moving out before there can be a heavy lockdown. But because this is such a serious move, and in terms of its economic impact, I think it also does open the door to a more serious crackdown by the Hong Kong government.
What about what you're hearing from China at the moment? We saw China now calling these protests essentially, or likening them to terrorism, also saying that this is at a critical juncture after 2 months of protests. What do you take away from that?
Well, terrorism is a key word. We've seen how that is used to justify some of the really harsh clampdowns in China, as we've seen with the camps in Xinjiang. If a similar seriousness of approach is applied in Hong Kong, we could see that the PLA garrison gets used there. I think it's still possibly quite remote because they're leaving it to the police. But looking at these pictures that we see, it's hard to know. The police are clearly not maybe losing control, but it's really escalated. And how are the people of Hong Kong supposed to go on after this with the police? The relationship with the police is under severe strain. So I think it is indeed a big escalation. And with Beijing watching all the time and using these words like terrorism, we could see things develop in a far more serious direction.
All right, DW's Clifford Coonan reporting on the story for us. Thank you very much for your insight.